So let me give you an example. Does Mr. Lee give very hard tests?
No.
Yes.
Somebody said no.
I can't believe that.
What happened?
I don't know. I thought I tested him and challenged him well, but
let's pretend
maybe
he
not.
does. Okay, let's pretend he gives hard tests. So you're home studying for the last test of the year, right? And it's the most important test of the year because it's the last test of the year. But you can't study because there's a noise out in the street. And so you look out your window and you see two adults, and it looks like they're about to start fighting. So you run and you tell your parents that something's going on outside. They look, and these are two pretty big people. They don't want to get involved, so they call a police officer. Police officer comes out and talks to these two people. Now, maybe he solves the problem and they all go away. Maybe somebody's at fault, but it's not too serious and they get a ticket for something they've done. Maybe it is serious and the police officer arrests somebody in handcuffs and takes them away in the car. No matter what happens, the police officer has to write a report about what it is they did and why, and what they saw, and if they collected any evidence. Those reports come to the district attorney. And if the district attorney feels that they can prove that a crime occurred beyond a reasonable doubt, that they can prove that one of those people is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then they will file a criminal complaint, and we begin a criminal case with one of those files. If they don't think they can prove it, then nothing happens. Well, let's say they did file a criminal complaint against one of those people. Let's say they were charged with disturbing the peace for yelling late at night, which is a crime if you yell loud enough and you disturb enough people. So let's say the case goes up to court, and the judge calls the case People versus John Smith. And the district attorney sits down, and John Smith sits down, and the judge says, all right, proceed. And the district attorney says, we think John Smith disturbed the peace. And the district attorney sits down. And that's the end. That's all they say. What does the judge do? Anybody? Yes? Ask for evidence. The district attorney says, we've charged him. He was arrested by the police officer. That's all you need, Judge. What do you say? What does the judge say? Does he have to agree with the district attorney? Yes?
He asked why did the man create the noise?
The judge wants to know, right? Because there's no evidence. We don't know what happened. All we know is the district attorney has pointed the finger at somebody and accused them of a crime, and that's not evidence. We need witnesses, we need videotape, we need audio tape, we need fingerprints, we need DNA, we need fiber tests, we need something, somewhere, a photograph, anything that would show us what happened. But if there's nobody who's going to testify and there's no evidence that's introduced, each one of us, just like John Smith, is entitled to be found not guilty. Because each one of us, as a citizen, is entitled to be presumed innocent. They have to prove us guilty. In some countries, it's different. Once you get arrested, you have to prove your innocence. That's not the way it works in the United States. The state has to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So we've talked about the district attorney's jobs, the public defender's jobs. We're going to talk now for just a couple moments about the law enforcement officer. Yes?
I didn't understand the thing about that you said about John Smith. And like,
About John Smith?
And, like,
Well,
what
John Smith is
happened?
made up, but
like what? I don't get
John
what
Smith is
happened.
just an example of a person who was accused of a crime. He was arrested by a police officer. He was accused by the district attorney of having committed that crime. But if there's no more evidence than just the accusation, then you cannot be convicted under our law.
Who's the district attorney again?
The district attorney is the prosecutor, the one who brings the charges forward, the one who files the complaint, and the one who proves it in court. Okay? Yes?
Wait, once a person is proved guilty, does he have to go to jail, or can other things happen?
Well, there are many different kinds of sentences, and I don't want to get into that too much, otherwise we're going to get too far behind schedule. Can you hold your question for a little bit? Because this is something I want you to see before too long. We've talked about the lawyers, but in every criminal courtroom, you're also going to see at least one law enforcement officer. Maybe it's a police officer who was a witness in a case because he did something having to do with that case. But you're certainly going to see the Alameda County Sheriff. And that's because the sheriff is our security officer. He is what we call the marshal in a courthouse. The sheriff is a law enforcement officer just like a police officer. And in certain parts of the county, it's the only police officer they have. For For example, in Sunol, which is right over the 680 line there, or in parts of Hayward, they have no police department for themselves. They use the sheriff's department. So the sheriff's department writes tickets and arrests people and does all the things that a normal police officer does. But here in this building, they have a very specific job. Before the building opens, they check around the outside of the building and make sure there are no guns or knives, hypodermic needles, or other things that might cause harm to people. They make sure that the weapons screening station is operating so that when you come through the door, we know that you're not bringing in any weapons. The same thing for everybody else who came through that door. So that the people who work here are safe, the people like you who are visiting are safe, and the people who come to us from the county jail and the Fremont jail are also safe, especially from one another. So they have to keep everybody safe here in the building. And you'll see them in each courtroom that you visit, if it's a criminal courtroom, because they're in charge of keeping order in the courtroom. And I want to show you a little bit about what it is they do and how it is they do it. And to do that, we're going to visit the sheriff's office for just a few moments. So I'd like your cooperation. Those of you who are the smallest in your class, I'd like you to come to the front of the line.